If bees disappear off the face of the earth, man would only have 4 years left to live. This was not said by some random hippie, but by Albert Einstein, who is regarded as one of the greatest minds of all time. So if people like Einstein were talking about the importance of bees, why don't more people know about it? Bees have been an important part of many cultures throughout history, a symbol of a stable and obedient society in ancient Egypt, found carved on the walls of caves in Spain nearly 15,000 years ago, and some cultures even believe they created the first man. Bees are still an important role in our lives today, not in the same way as the people before us, and their disappearance is not a thing many people know about. First, in the late 1990s, beekeepers around the world observed a mysterious and sudden decline of bees, and have since then seen an unusually fast rate of decrease in their honeybee colonies. Now, why is this happening, and how will this affect you and me? According to the UN Statistical Yearbook of Food and Agriculture, it is predicted that over the next 4 decades, the world's population is to increase by 2 billion people, making the population over 9 billion people by 2050. In order to supply all of these people, global agricultural production will have to increase by 60% of what we were making in 2005 to 2007. Bees would be a crucial part of this production increase. In fact, around 70% of the 100 main crops we eat are pollinated by bees. This includes crops like potatoes, onions, broccoli, oranges, grapefruits, and even things like coconuts. Also, the California almond industry alone requires approximately 1.8 million colonies of honeybees yearly in order to pollinate their nearly 1 million acres of almond orchards. Ironically, the people that need the bees the most are the ones causing the problem, as the main contributor to this decline in bees is pesticides. More specifically, the pesticide neonicotinoids. This pesticide is a relatively new insecticide that infects the brain of insects, resulting in memory loss, paralysis, and eventually death. But it does not only affect bees. In fact, in March of 2018, the American Bird Conservancy published 200 studies on the effects of neonicotinoids and called for a ban on using it as a seed treatment, as it had devastating effects on birds, insects, water life, and other wildlife. Neonicotinoids is produced mainly by a company you might know as Monsanto or Bayer. If you don't know, Monsanto is the world's largest producer in genetically modified crops, or GMOs. For example, they own 80% of the GMO corn market and 93% of the GMO soy market. The farmers that Monsanto sells to puts the pesticides on their crops to try and increase their yield, but what they don't realize is that it's having long-term effects on the environment around their crops, the wildlife, and the crops they will be wanting to grow there in the future. And in the short term, they won't have anything to pollinate their crops. Therefore, they will have to look at different methods of pollination, using things like machines or something even crazier, like humans. It might sound insane to have humans pollinate crops, but it is already being done in places around China. According to the Huffington Post, it is currently happening in the Chinese region called Hanyun. In Hanyun, the main export is pears, and almost all the people here work with or around these pears. But in recent years, the excessive use of pesticides has led to a drastic loss of bees in the area. Therefore, workers are now forced to pollinate the fruit trees artificially, carefully transferring pollen from one flower to another using long sticks. So without bees, you might not get to enjoy your favorite fruits, or you might have to be the one pollinating them. But we can work together to stop this from happening. The first step in doing this is education. When I was thinking on ways to educate people on this subject, I wanted something that related to bees, was sustainable, and would be desirable to the buyer. Therefore, I decided to make candles. It was the perfect way to check off all the things on my list. The candles I made are made from beeswax, as locally sourced as possible. I know you might have heard that beeswax is bad for bees, but it is a byproduct of collecting honey and does not harm the bees or their colony. Also, the other option in the time I had to make these candles would be paraffin wax. Paraffin wax is a byproduct of collecting petroleum. Therefore, it can pollute the area you're burning it in and is very unsustainably sourced. Therefore, I thought beeswax would be the best option in the time I had. I wanted to keep the making of these candles as sustainable as possible. Therefore, all the glass bottles I cut came from Kambali, and I cut and sanded them by hand. This way, I created little to no carbon emission while making the containers for the candles. But since I did this all by hand, the final product was something I was proud of, but not something I would want to buy, which was one of my main priorities. Therefore, I contacted Ibu Kim from Bali Street Moms and was able to get some professionally cut recycled glass while still helping the local community. I melted the beeswax and poured the candles at my house and decided to scent them with jasmine essential oils. As I said before, the idea behind these candles was to raise awareness about the endangerment of bees, and all the profits have gone to an amazing organization called the Planet Bee Organization. They work with companies like Whole Food and Cliff Bars. They work with kids in schools and even have a summer camp to raise awareness on the importance of bees. Also, I chose this organization as they would allow my efforts to continue to educate people beyond green school on the importance of bees and how we can help them as much as they help us. Thank you.